All right, it's time for the first preview. The 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. Short week means quick turnaround. We were talking about the Jets essentially all off season after the schedule came out. The 49ers vanquished the Jets, and now, well, you got a top-tier quarterback matchup. I'm chuckling a little bit because it's based on a 1-week sample size, but here you go. And, oh, by the way, that's Wes Phillips. We're going to hear from the Vikings offensive coordinator in a little bit. First, I want you to see this. Adjusted EPA per play, expected points added per play. It adjusts for pass protection, receiver drops, dropped interceptions, and luck on interceptable passes, fumble recoveries, and interception returns. And quarterbacks are given credit only for expected yards after the catch. So, leading the list in week 1, Sam Darnold. Number 2, after week 1, Brock Purdy. The Vikings, Sam Darnold, the former 49er, against the current 49er, Brock Purdy. 1 against 2 happening this week in Minnesota. Mike said, can you zoom? Yes, I can zoom right there. This is all we need to see. We need to see Sam Darnold at number 1, 29 pass plays in, Brock Purdy at number 2, 34 pass plays in. He didn't throw 34 times, and I don't think Sam Darnold threw 29 times, but 34 pass plays. That includes scrambles, includes sacks, punished for sacks, of course. 1 against 2 in this football game. Now, J.J. McCarthy was Minnesota's draft pick. They originally signed Sam Darnold to be probably a bridge quarterback. $10 million per year. Sam made closer to, I think it was around 4 or 5 last year from the 49ers. It was an incentive-heavy deal. He didn't meet most of the incentives because Brock Purdy didn't get hurt. So Brock Purdy started all but one of the games last season. So the 49ers budget for the backup QB room was around $4 or $5 million. They couldn't pay Sam Darnold the $10 million that Minnesota was able to pay him. So that's a credit to the 49ers and to Sam Darnold for, boosting the reputation over that 2023 season as the backup in San Francisco to the point where he was able to sign a deal into the double-digit millions. So 49ers were sad to see Sam Darnold go, but he left to Minnesota. That's a bridge quarterback rate, $10 million. J.J. McCarthy was the draft pick, but he's out for the season after undergoing knee surgery. So Sam Darnold is the starter for Minnesota, and he has a chance to earn a very, very big contract based on what he does this season. First returns, really good. Now, it was against the New York Giants. The New York Giants aren't very good, but we're going to take a look at some other stats, some stylistic stats from week 1 after we hear from both coordinators of the Minnesota Vikings and how they view the 49ers. First, this is offensive coordinator Wes Phillips, the son of Wade Phillips, the grandson of Bum Phillips. That's a very coaching-oriented family. Here's Wes Phillips on the 49ers and what they bring defensively against his offense.
They have a lot of great players. Number one, they've got a good sound scheme. They're physical. They're athletic. They've got good players on every level of the defense. Really great players on every level of the defense. They're coached well. They play hard. Really, it's going to be a big challenge for us. It was a challenge last year playing these guys, and I expect nothing less. I mean, it's a team that's been in championship games and Super Bowls, and for good reason. They're good on both sides, and we're going to have to. Our defense is doing great, but they've got a good offense too. So it's really, they're just a good football team. So we've got our work cut out for us.
I think we're going to be hearing a lot of those kind of appraisals of the 49ers over the course of this season from opposing teams. We'll hear from Brian Flores on the other side of the ball in just a few minutes. It's true. I mean, San Francisco, what we saw against the Jets was a loaded team that wasn't even at full strength. And based on the talent level in New York, now that they've got the offense I think more figured out than last year with Aaron Rodgers and a better offensive line. That's supposed to be a good Jets team. And the 49ers just throttled them. They just controlled that game in such a workmanlike fashion. So, Minnesota, this is another team with some talent, but the 49ers are actually favored by more in this game by 6 points on a short week and on the road than they were last week to open the NFL season against the Jets. That was a 4 to 4.5 point spread. I think it might have gone down to 3.5 after Christian McCaffrey was ruled out right before the game. That being said, do not forget what I just said about the short week. That is a significant deal. The 49ers, they're not traveling all the way across the country, but it isn't a short flight to Minneapolis. They played on Monday night while the Jets the Jets also played Monday night while the Vikings played on Sunday afternoon. So that's a full extra, almost a day and a half, essentially, of recovery for the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are at home. 49ers lost in that building last year. It's an awesome building, US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Open air press box, new stadium, loud stadium. The 49ers lost in that stadium last season. So the Vikings do have a few advantages, but the spread does indicate the talent difference in this football game. And it definitely belongs to the advantage in that regard belongs to the San Francisco 49ers. When you think of the Minnesota Vikings, you do think of Justin Jefferson. And I go back to the very first couple of days of training camp when Justin Jefferson was talking about how fun it was to catch passes from Sam Darnold. Darnold was airing it out from the very beginning of this training camp. So there is talent in the receiver room. Justin Jefferson is the best the game has to offer. Christian Darrisaw is a really good left tackle. We talked about the matchup between him and Nick Bosa last season. Brian O'Neill on the other side, not as good as Christian Darrisaw, and we know that Bosa moves from side to side for the 49ers, so it's going to be interesting to see how he and Leonard Floyd split duties against the line that I think they can beat. I think that the Jets line was much better than it had been in 2023, but the 49ers started to get some wins against that New York Jets line with both Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd. Other side of the ball, Harrison Phillips is the Stanford product defensive tackle. He is a good player who just signed a contract extension with the Vikings. When I look at the interior line, I can't help but think about how Dominic Puni is going to match up against these guys, because when the 49ers ran the football behind Dominic Puni against the New York Jets on Monday night, they averaged 8.3 yards per carry. Here we were told that this guy was a better pass protector than a run blocker, and he needed to work on his run blocking. And then Dominic Puni shows up and does that. Absolutely road grades in the run game. So I'm going to delve into this matchup with all the numbers much more. This is just the initial preview. But how the 49ers are able to administer the punishment on the ground, that's going to go a long way toward carrying what they did on Monday to the road. San Francisco actually ran to the right side about 67% of the time on Monday. They typically had run way more to the left side, but they're trying to preserve Trent Williams early in the year before he gets into great shape. And I think they also like Dominic Puni a lot on the right side. Last year, Cameron Bynum, the Vikings safety, intercepted Brock Purdy twice, although I think that Brock Purdy's concussion had something to do with that. He suffered it, we believe, in the fourth quarter on one of the quarterback sneak attempts. But Cameron Bynum, the Cal product, intercepted Brock Purdy twice down the stretch. That ended up, I don't think the Vikings have a great defense, but they were able to finally stymie the 49ers after Purdy supposedly got hurt in that football game. So we have to mention Bynum right now, his Bay Area roots in college, and have to avoid those interceptions if you are Brock Purdy. It was a game that was going well for Purdy up until the very end, up until after what looked to be the concussion play on that quarterback sneak. He had a really, really nice run against Minnesota on the road last year. They have Stephon Gilmore at one of the cornerback positions. Minnesota didn't have him last year, free agent pickup. He had been with the Cowboys. Let's hear from Brian Flores, the Vikings defensive coordinator on the 49ers?
I mean, it really doesn't get more challenging, you know, if I'm speaking honestly. This is your reigning NFC champions. And they've been a very, very, elite team for a number of years now. It starts with, Coach Shanahan, and I think he's done a great job, of building that team, offense, defense, special teams, into a physical group, a group that plays smart, that plays physical. I keep mentioning that because that's what they are. They've got skilled players everywhere. I can go down the list. McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Trent Williams. I mean, there's just, player after player after player after player. Juwan Jennings shows up. They've done an incredible job of acquiring players, developing players. And then those guys, they do a great job of getting the ball in those guys' hands, and giving them the ability to use their talents, gifts, and abilities to run with it. I mean, I would say this is easily the best run after team in the league because of all those guys. So definitely a big challenge, but really from the top all the way down, they do a great job.
It's Brian Flores, and he's not lying. I mean, the 49ers were the number one offense in football last season. They've got weapons all over the place. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the game in Brock Purdy. They have maybe the best play caller in the game in Kyle Shanahan. He listed all the receivers. It doesn't even have to get to Christian McCaffrey, who might not play, and I don't think he should play unless he's 100%, because there are so many other guys that pick up the slack. Like we said, Jordan Mason, when he ran behind Dominic Pooney last week, they averaged 8.3 yards per carry. Mason over 5 per carry on the whole game, 28 carries. That was the most for any player in one game under Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers. So San Francisco, the number one offense in the NFL last season, and then they turned around, and that was a damn good Jets defense that the 49ers faced on Monday night. When we saw tastes of it, especially early on with the coverage, right? Quincy Williams, Sauce Gardner, CJ Mosley. Those guys are some of the best cover players in the league in the back seven. And there wasn't a lot of room for the 49ers to operate. But San Francisco can beat you in so many different ways. And because of that, if one thing's not working, if a team's pass rush and coverage is overwhelming you, 49ers can just go to another trick in their book. And it's not even a trick. It's a staple of their book. It is the downhill run game. They were getting after it. I mean, it was one cut on the outside zone. It was a lot of punishing inside zone straight at the Jets. I call it Diesel, and Diesel is what won the 49ers the football game. So at the end of the day, you had a really good defense that gave up scoring drives on 8 consecutive drives to the 49ers. 8 straight drives turned into points. Yeah, it was a lot of field goals. And by the way, congratulations to Jake Moody. He's the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He's 6 of 6 on field goals, 2 extra points. 2 of those field goals were over 50 yards. So Moody became the first 49er to connect on all 6 field goals, and 2 of those coming from 50 yards. Nobody had ever done that. The last 49er to go 6 of 6 in a game was Robbie Gould when they beat the Tennessee Titans in 2017. That was Jimmy Garoppolo's first home start for the 49ers. But what Moody did was truly impressive, but he had to be set up to kick all those field goals. The 49ers had to consistently move the ball downfield, and that they did. 8 straight scoring drives against the New York Jets, and the Jets are a good defense. They're going to give a lot of teams trouble this year, just like they did last year when they finished as the number 3 defense in the league. So really impressive start from the 49ers in that regard. I can give you the Vikings ranks right now. We'll start on the defensive side of the ball from 2022. I'm not going to read a lot into how Minnesota did against the New York Giants, because the Giants do seem terrible. Kind of a one-game sample there. I think the one-game sample against a team like the Jets, who returned so many good defensive players, probably more meaningful than a sample against the New York Giants, who look like they might be the laughing stock of the league right now. At least they are, alongside the Carolina Panthers. Last year, the Minnesota Vikings defense ranked down at number 17. This was a mediocre defense the 49ers had their way with until Brock Purdy was concussed last season. If you guys want to take a look at it, maybe I can give that to you right now. Then I got a good Brock Purdy chart to finish things up. This I don't think I could zoom in on, so you're going to have to strain your eyes to see it, but I highlighted Minnesota for you. These are last season's defensive rankings. I mentioned the 49ers were number 10. They've got to get that better this year. I think that is better for San Francisco this year. Minnesota down at number 17. If we want to filter it by pass defense, Minnesota was number 14. 49ers were number 6. This is EPA per play. Run defense, Minnesota stayed 17. 49ers were number 26. So every single metric suggests that this is a mediocre Minnesota Vikings defense. How about the other side of the ball? Well, let's flip this around. Let's go to offense. Let's see how the Vikings rank, how the 49ers rank. I mentioned that the 49ers were the number 1 offense in the league last year. That will be reflected in this chart. Here you go. 49ers highlighted at the very top, number 1. Minnesota, number 18. Now, different quarterback. It's not Kirk Cousins anymore. It is now Sam Darnold, who was playing top of the league type football against the Giants. If you sort it by the drop back EPA, the 49ers, number 1, Minnesota, number 18. Rushing EPA, and it is, I don't think it's loading for me here. Let me refresh this page very briefly. We'll see where the run defense finished up. All right, offense. Had to get Ben Baldwin's website to reboot. There we go. Now we have to go back to 2023. Update. It's almost there, I promise. All right, 49ers highlighted, Vikings highlighted, back up on the screen. So drop back offense, 49ers number 1, Vikings number 19. Rushing offense, 49ers number 1. What a juggernaut. The 49ers were number 1 across the board last year. Brian Flores wasn't lying in his comments. Vikings down at number 25. So you could see why the 49ers are favored by 6 here, even despite the fact that they have to travel on a short week. The rankings are just much better than Minnesota's. That being said, new quarterback for Minnesota is a quarterback of 49ers QBU. It is Sam Darnold. And we could see a little bit of how Darnold and Brock Purdy delivered stylistically last week. X-axis is time to throw, so the amount of time on average that elapsed between snap and release, and y-axis is average depth of target. Sam Darnold had a lot of time to throw against the Jets, and he took a lot of time to throw too, but I think he played the quarterback position well. He took the time that he had. Sometimes this indicates that a guy is not making quick decisions. I don't think that was the case for Sam Darnold watching the tape against the New York Giants. So here he is, and a high average depth of target. He was averaging nearly 12 air yards downfield per throw. Look where Brock Purdy was, near the same level as Sam Darnold as far as average depth of target. Brock Purdy, however, was getting rid of the ball much more quickly. The average or median time to throw is right here on the y-axis. Purdy is over on the left side of the chart. So Purdy, Darnold, same average air yards in week 1. Was interesting to see how they attacked the game, but Purdy was getting rid of the ball more quickly against a better Jets defense than the Giants defense that Sam Darnold was facing. Now, this is fascinating. Anthony Richardson's number, I think, is inflated here, way over 16. That's probably borderline close to 20. He had that one 66-yard touchdown pass. It's funny because when you're dealing with week 1, stuff is going to be skewed. You're going to have outliers. But as more weeks and more games are added to the data set, stuff is going to become much more regular. And you're going to see quarterbacks settle into the position that most accurately reflects their long-term style. And I'm excited to see what Sam Darnold's long-term style is going to be with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm excited to see how the 49ers offense evolves this year. And the next step in that evolution is going to happen against the Vikings in a game that kicks off on Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to delve very far into this game. I mean, we're doing the previews right this year. I hope that you saw that leading up into the game against the Jets. So this is just the first one. Off to the facility today. The 49ers practice at, I think, around 1:30 or so. Kyle Shanahan speaks at 12:40. So updates coming. This has been your Wednesday morning 49ers Vikings first preview. We'll talk to everybody soon.